Right, here we are. Time to talk about Pompey 0, Sheffield Wednesday 2. I'm back in the studio. I went to the game. We've got technical difficulties in the studio at the moment, so this may not sound perfect, but I'll give it my best shot. Such is the state of things, and you'll understand this, I hope. I'm not an alcoholic, but I've had 3 pints of Madrid and a pint of Guinness, and I've now got a little bottle of Peroni at my left elbow, which I'm going to enjoy whilst I share with you what I hope you will find agreeable thoughts about that game. And when I say agreeable, what I mean is you will agree kind of with what I have to say. If you want to pick me up on anything or simply applaud what it is that I'm going to say, and I think that's unlikely, you ought to disagree with me somewhere along the way, then you can send me an email to radiopompey@gmail.com, and we'll incorporate that in the next podcast. So we turned up and we expected to beat them. We did. Not just us, the fans, but the players, I suspect, kind of felt as though we've arrived. We've arrived and we're looking at a playoff place. And these guys are in trouble. They're decimated. They've lost lots of players. They're in a state of disarray, huge disarray. There's no way they can put a performance together that's going to threaten us. And sometimes when a football team decides that, without actually deciding it, you know, they didn't sit and have their morning ablutions, the Pompey squad, thinking to themselves, somebody else can do the job. I'll turn up, I'll run around, I'll do what I have to do, but I'm not going to go the extra yard, mile, whatever, because we're a better side than they are, and we will win. Well, football doesn't work like that. We talked about it on Pompey Sound on Thursday and on Friday in the build-up to it. Football does not work like that. And you should expect the unexpected. And in a way, it was expected. And yet, at the same time, it was also unexpected. When did it begin? When did it begin? The team selection was fine. We had some class players out there, 1 or 2 or 3. Robbed of Nicholas Schmidt that we had fewer possible Premier League players in the side, and they simply didn't. Except that bullish little fellow that they had in midfield. What was his name? He was so good. He was head and shoulders above everybody else, even though he was tiny. Bullen? I can't remember. I should do, but I've had 3 pints of Madrid and I've had a pint of Guinness, and I'm necking a Peroni, excuse me, I'm rambling a bit, but anyway. I decided on the train back along the coast that I wasn't going to do a conventional match report. I'd rather just let it all hang out. You know what cost us that game? I'll tell you, in my view. The fact that they're going bust, they've got a rotten owner, they decided to do a protest 10 minutes into the game. We decided that we would support them and help them and echo their anger at their owner, because we know what that's like. And so we started applauding 10 minutes into the game, because that's what they asked us to do, or they said they were going to do, because he's been in charge for 10 years. I don't quite make the connection, but that's the sort of thing that goes off. So 10 minutes into the game, we were all looking at the clocks that now abound at Fratton Park. It was 10 minutes gone and we started clapping, applauding. And I looked around the ground and every single Pompey fan I could see was applauding. I wanted to look down and see it in the dugout if the Pompey backroom people were applauding, or the subs or whatever. I didn't. I applauded. And then 30 seconds into the applause, I noticed that the Sheffield Wednesday fans weren't applauding. They were singing a song. They had their black and gold scarves out, Anfield style, and I don't know what they were singing. I couldn't pick the tune out and I didn't know what the words were. But I noticed that was going on. Then I looked at the other end of the pitch and they got a free kick. I was scarcely watching the game. I was looking at what was going on around the ground, because it was more about sympathy for a club that's dying and the supporters and what it means to them which we understand, and so we extended our sympathy to them. That was what was going on. And then suddenly they've got a free kick right on the edge of the area. And when I say on the edge of the area, I mean right on the edge of the area. Not just outside the D or anything. The penalty area extends 18 yards from the goal. This was a free kick, direct free kick, of course, 18 yards from the goal. And the singing is still going on from the Sheffield Wednesday end. And Ben in goal is lining up the wall. And it was a strange lineup because there was a wall of 5 Pompey players and then next to them a gap and then 2 other Pompey players. I've not seen that before that I remember. A wall consisting of players, a gap, and then a couple of more players on the end of it. But obviously they thought about it, talked about it. That was what they decided they were going to do. Up steps that bloke, pops it in the back of the net. Goes round the wall, I think. I haven't seen it back. Travelling no more than 2.5, 3 feet off the ground. You shouldn't be beating a wall by going round it, if that's what happened, 2 or 3 feet off the ground, but they did. He did. The rest of what that little fella did was to absolutely negate Connor Chaplin. I watched the 2 of them together. Whenever Pompey had the ball, he would spin around his little head and he would look to see where Chaplin was and he would go and pick him up. Not necessarily stand right next to him. You don't have to do that in order to mark a player out of the game. You have to get close enough to make it difficult to pass to him. And you have to make sure that he himself knows that he's going to have to free up some space if he's going to get the ball. So he's going to run around in places that he doesn't really want to be. He knows where he wants to be if he wants to be part of an attacking movement, does Chaplin. But this guy was brilliantly making him go at other places and be out of position. So that's pretty much the way that the first half worked out. We were losing most of the 50-50s. People like to talk about second ball. We were losing most of those. The only person who was winning the majority of his heading duels was the magnificent Colby Bishop. I nudged the bloke next to me at some point during the first half, and I said, Bishop has not failed to be first touch on long clearances at least 9 out of 10 times. Which is phenomenal because he's not the biggest bloke. And they had somebody in their defence who was about 8 feet tall. Luckily, he wasn't on Bishop. But the bloke that was marking Bishop got nothing. Colby got there first every time. Unfortunately, his knockdown, his touches, didn't get to a Pompey player because he didn't have anybody close enough to him to pick up all those winning balls that he was winning. Did we come close? Can you remember us coming close? I'll have a swig of Peroni whilst you ask yourself that question. Can you remember us coming close in the first half? No, because we didn't. We didn't. We were elsewhere in our heads. This is on the pitch. I didn't feel as though I did not feel as though Fratton Park, and the Fratton end in particular, I'm going to say it like this. It's provocative, it's flamboyant, but I'm going to say it. I don't think we did our job. No, we didn't. Those 2,500 travelling Sheffield Wednesday fans were louder for most of the game than we were. What? What? Where does that come from? How does that happen? They were. Their singing was coordinated. Their protest was coordinated. They were all carrying gold and black scarves, shirts, you name it. There were 1 or 2 gold and black scarves down at the Fratton end, I noticed, which was charming. But hey, listen, whilst as much as we care about Sheffield Wednesday, don't we care more about 3 points for ourselves? Yes, of course we do. So where were we? You know, as Delia Smith famously said to the Norwich fans, you know, where are you? Let's be having you, all that. We didn't do it. There were a couple of powerful, blue armies, yes. But the atmosphere that we can bring to Fratton Park, which makes it such an intimidating place to come, the cauldron that people talk about, Wasn't there today. Is that because the players weren't playing in that way that encouraged us to want to do what we can do? Maybe. Who knows? Not a psychologist. Or did the players feel as though it wasn't the cauldron that they're used to, and they weren't inspired by what they were getting, which was politeness? We were very polite to Sheffield Wednesday. Even on the pitch. You know, it was kind of after you, Claude. Oh, it's a second ball. After you, sir. After you. No, please, you pick it up and go with it. They had some players. They were quick. They were determined. They were committed. Their manager was wonderfully irritating on the touchline in the technical area, the dugout. He enjoyed himself more and more as the game went on, because I think he realised quite early on this could be their day. And watching John Messino as well, his body language, I thought to myself, he realised there wasn't going to be an awful lot he could do, either to say at half-time to turn things round or to make substitutions. And he made plenty of them. And they were all interesting. I thought, didn't you, that Mackenzie Kirk looked sharp and fast and quick, did a lovely turn at one point, killed the guy coming in behind him when he received it to feet, did a quick flick and turn, and the guy had to foul him, which is what he did, tripped him up. But it was a lovely turn. And I was watching him when the ball was getting towards their penalty area. He came on at 66 minutes to go, I think, Kirk, which is kind of an early debut. I do remember Pompey Sound, us saying, maybe if we're 3-0 up, or I said 3-0 down with 10 minutes to go, we might get our first glimpse of Kirk. Well, we got it at 66 minutes in because we needed him. We just didn't look as though we were going to turn any of our stuff into goals. Now, I'm not going to start going around blaming players. I thought, of course, though, I will say that Bianchini was well dealt with by their defence. They knew exactly how to negate him. And as he develops as a player, which I'm sure he will, he's fast and he's got all the skills. As he develops as a player, he will learn to impose himself back on a defence that has kind of got him sussed. Colby Bishop was magnificent, of course. Oh, Bianchini is not Josh Murphy. Did we miss Josh Murphy? Oh, mama, did we miss him? Let's hope he's back next week. We mentioned the fact earlier that Connor Chaplin wasn't able to grace the game with the stuff that he's got. Segacic was very, very busy, but tended to cut inside onto his left foot every time he got the ball out wide, right? And they kind of tumbled that. They may even have done their research and knew that he would shoot every chance he got, so they covered that. They blocked him as soon as he raised his left leg to give it a blast. He can hit the ball. They had it blocked. They must have blocked, I'm going to say half a dozen Segacic shots, cutting in from the right, getting it onto his left, then going past another player, or at least beyond another player, and teeing himself up. But it didn't come off. The wonderful pairing of Shaughnessy and Poole was magnificent until their second goal. Still haven't seen it back, still don't know quite what happened. I think Shaughnessy went out to cover a Sheffield Wednesday player who was effectively not on their right wing, but Shaughnessy went out to cover him, slow him down a little bit. And then I'm told, because I was watching the ball, he just went down. And suddenly their player had the ball and he was in the penalty area with only the keeper to beat, and he beat the keeper. So what happened there, I'm going to have a look at that back. But from then on, we were chasing our tails. The only saving grace of the game is that I went for a beer after the game and spoke to a number of fans, and they all said more or less what I've just been saying for the last couple of minutes. But what was really nice was that I went to the bar to get my second beer and to buy a round, and I was standing there, and a bloke came in and he sat down on one of the bar stools next to the bar, and he started watching the big screen television that was in there because Man U were playing Chelsea. And I looked out the corner of my eye, and it was Kuznetsky, he'd come up to watch the game, which I found so endearing. And there'd been a red card quite early on in that game, and I was tempted to say to him something like, "Oh, red card, what happened there?" But, I didn't, because it would have been artificial, and I would have been trying to get a Kuznetsky story out of it. But it was very endearing, that's all. He didn't drink anything. He changed very quickly into his tracksuit, and he sat there for another 20 minutes, because I left at that point to get the train home, and he was still sitting there enjoying the game like a fan. That's what I think I found endearing. He was enjoying the game like the rest of us were, because the whole of the bar was full of people who were glued to the Man U-Chelsea game because they didn't want to think too much about what they'd just seen. John Messina's got a job on his hands now, turning all of that round, and as the week develops, we'll find out something about how he plans to do that. So, Pompey 0, Sheffield Wednesday 2.